I never thought I'd be writing something like this, honestly. My name's Daniel, and I used to believe I had a pretty solid marriage with my wife, Lisa. We've been together for about 10 years now, and on the surface, everything looked normal. She's the kind of woman who always seemed a little bitchy, quick to snap, and often dismissive about my opinions, especially when it came to her friends or her social life. But I figured that was just her personality, something I had to accept. I mean, everyone's got their quirks, right? Looking back, maybe I should have seen some of the signs early on. She started acting more distant after our last family trip, spending more evenings out with her friends than usual. She'd brush off my questions with a sharp, "Relax, Daniel, it's just girls' night," or "I'm just catching up, you're too paranoid." It made me uneasy, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was overthinking things. Still, I noticed little things. Her phone kept getting more secretive. She was always quick to dismiss my attempts to check her messages, and her lies about where she was going or who she was with started to pile up. Then came the night of our 20-year high school reunion. Honestly, I wasn't too excited about it. Lisa convinced me to go, saying it'd be fun to reconnect with old friends and see where everyone ended up. I didn't realize how much I'd wish I hadn't gone until I saw her there, acting a little too comfortable with some guy I'd never seen before. His name was Jason, big guy, cocky grin, total high school bully vibe. I remembered him from back in the day, and I'd always hated how he used to pick on people, including me. Seeing her laugh and flirt with him so casually made my stomach turn. What really threw me for a loop, though, was what happened during the awards ceremony. I was there, standing proud, accepting an achievement award for my work in the community. It was a big moment, and I was genuinely proud. But in the middle of the ceremony, Lisa disappeared. I thought she'd gone to the bathroom or was talking to someone outside. I looked around, but I couldn't find her. Then I saw her and Jason together, heading toward the back of the hall. They didn't notice me watching them. I could see them through a side window, her leaning into him, their heads close, whispering. They looked intimate, like they'd known each other for ages. The way she was laughing, the way his hand was resting on her waist, I knew something was seriously wrong. I froze, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. My first instinct was denial. Maybe they were just talking. Maybe I was overreacting. But then I saw her pull away from him and whisper something. I couldn't hear what she said, but her face was smirking and his eyes sparkled with mischief. The last thing I saw before she turned away was her straightening her dress, adjusting her hair like she was making herself ready to go back to her normal life. It hit me then, this was more than just a flirtation. This was something else, something serious. I felt sick, betrayed, humiliated all at once. My mind spun with questions. How long has this been going on? How many more lies? And most of all, why? Why did she do this to me at my own achievement moment? It was like the universe was mocking me. I didn't say a word that night. I just left, silent, and went home alone with everything inside me turning over and over. The days that followed were a blur of anger, confusion, and a deep, sinking disappointment I couldn't shake. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Jason, the way she looked, that smirk on her face, the way she leaned into him like they had some secret world. It was like my mind was trying to punish me for not noticing sooner. I kept replaying the moment I saw her disappear with him during my achievement ceremony. That was the moment everything changed. Before that, I had my doubts, sure, but I always told myself I was paranoid, that maybe I was imagining things, that Lisa was just a little bitchy and distant but loyal. Now I knew better. She had been hiding this from me, lying straight to my face. I decided I needed to confront her. But not right away. I was too angry, too hurt. I needed to think, to plan. I started watching her more carefully, noticing every little change in her routine. She became more secretive with her phone, more dismissive when I asked questions. Sometimes I'd catch her slipping out of the house late at night, just for a few minutes, and I would lie awake, wondering what she was doing. Every little detail added to the growing pile of evidence that she'd been cheating. I felt betrayed on a level I'd never experienced before. How could someone I loved and trusted do this to me? One afternoon, I finally decided enough was enough. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I sat her down in the living room, cold, calm, but seething inside. I'm not the kind of guy who screams or throws things. I prefer to keep my composure and get straight to the point. I told her I knew she'd been unfaithful, that I'd seen her with Jason at the reunion, and that I wasn't stupid. Her reaction stunned me. Instead of denying it outright, she rolled her eyes, scoffing like I was some paranoid idiot. "Oh, please, Daniel," she snapped. "You're overreacting as usual. That guy's just a friend. You're so insecure you think every guy is after me or something. Honestly, I don't have time for your jealousy bullshit." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was classic Lisa, dismissive, bitchy, lying through her teeth. She continued with her usual excuses, claiming that Jason was just someone she caught up with, that they hadn't done anything, that I was being paranoid again. She even had the nerve to say, "You're just jealous because I still look good and guys like me. If you weren't so boring, maybe you'd have a shot at keeping me happy instead of snooping around all the damn time." I stared at her, feeling my fists clench, trying to stay calm. But inside, I was boiling. How could she be so callous? How could she lie to my face like that after what I saw? That confrontation was the tipping point. I knew there was no fixing this with words alone. The sting of her betrayal ran so deep I didn't know if I could ever forgive her. But I also didn't want to jump to any rash decisions without a plan. I needed to think about what I really wanted, whether to stay and fight for us, or walk away and start over. But one thing was certain, I was no longer blind. I saw her for what she was, and I was determined not to be the fool who got played. That night, lying in bed, I realized I had to take control of the situation, and that meant coming up with a plan that would make her regret ever crossing me. Over the next few days, I kept my distance from Lisa, watching her every move, gathering more evidence in my head. I didn't want her to catch on that. I knew not yet. I needed to play it smart. Meanwhile, I started thinking about how I could turn the tables on her, make her realize she'd lost something important in me. I wasn't going to be just some sucker who gets cheated on and then goes quietly into the night. No, I wanted to make her feel the pain, the betrayal, the loss, just like she made me feel. One evening, I came across her phone on the kitchen table. I knew I shouldn't do it, but curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed it, unlocked it with the passcode sheet. Always kept secret. Honestly, I expected nothing, just a guilty peek into her digital life. But what I found was worse than anything I could have imagined. Her texts with Jason were right there, not just innocent flirting, but explicit conversations, plans for secret meetings, and even some explicit photos. I scrolled through them, feeling my stomach turn. She was lying to my face about just being friends. She was screwing him, probably for months, right under my nose. My mind raced. I knew I had to do something, but I also knew I couldn't confront her immediately. I wanted evidence, something concrete that I could use to make her regret every lie. So I started planning my revenge, carefully. I decided I'd gather all her messages, her photos, everything. I'd go to a lawyer, find out what my options were if I decided to divorce her. I also wanted to know if I could get access to her bank accounts, her social media, her emails, the full picture of how deeply she'd betrayed me. I wasn't just about punishing her. I needed to understand how to come out of this stronger, with all the cards on my side. That night I stayed awake, staring at her phone screen. I felt empty, betrayed, but also strangely calm. I knew I couldn't let her see me sweat, not yet. I had to play this smart. The plan was forming in my head. I'd wait for the right moment when she'd be least expecting it. I'd confront her with everything, not just the affair, but the evidence, the lies, all of it. She'd have no excuse, no way out. I wanted her to feel what I'd been feeling, like I'd been punched in the gut and left to pick up the pieces. I realized that this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-respect. I had to do something to make her understand that she'd crossed a line, and that I wasn't going to be the fool who gets betrayed without fighting back. The next step was clear. I needed to gather every piece of proof I could find, and then I'd decide how to deliver the knockout punch. I was done playing nice. It was time to take control. The day I finally decided to act, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. I knew I had enough evidence now, her explicit texts, the photos, even the times I'd seen her sneaking out. I'd also managed to get into her email account just to see what else she'd been hiding. The thing is, once you start digging, you realize there's no going back. I was looking at betrayal on a scale I never thought possible. It wasn't just a fling, it was a full-blown affair with someone I once hated. My high school bully, Jason, of all people. That made it even more humiliating, knowing that he, the guy who used to mock me mercilessly, was now screwing my wife. I waited until she was out of the house, which was easy enough since she always claimed she had some urgent errands. I carefully printed out the most damning messages, saved copies of the photos, and hid everything in a box in the back of my closet. I didn't want to confront her yet. I wanted to be prepared, to have my ducks in a row. I also called a lawyer I'd found online, someone who specializes in divorce and infidelity cases. I wanted to know my rights, what she could potentially do if I had to go that route. The lawyer said I had a strong case, especially with the digital proof I'd gathered, but I'd need to think about the next move carefully. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at the box of evidence. My mind was racing, full of anger and disappointment. I knew I couldn't stay quiet forever, but I also didn't want her to see that I'd already caught her. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to realize she'd lost everything she thought she could get away with. The next morning, I woke up with the plan in my head. I would confront her face to face, lay all my cards on the table, and see how she reacted. I wanted her to know I wasn't some passive fool anymore. I was ready to fight for myself. I also decided I'd leave her a copy of the evidence, just in case. I wanted her to understand that I knew everything, that there was no more hiding, no more secrets. I wanted her to feel the same gut-wrenching betrayal I'd been feeling for days. The moment I saw her walk through that door after work, I was going to lay it all out. No more excuses, no more lies, just the truth. And I'd do it on my own terms. I wasn't going to beg, I wasn't going to plead. I was done being the fool. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions, and I was determined to make sure she did. That afternoon, I could feel my heart pounding every time I heard her keys in the lock. I'd spent the whole day mentally rehearsing what I was going to say, how I'd present the evidence, and what I'd do if she tried to deny everything. When Lisa finally walked in, I kept my face calm, too calm, some might say. She immediately started with her usual bitchy attitude, throwing her purse down and snapping. "What's your problem, Daniel? Did I forget something at the store?" I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "We need to talk. Sit down." She looked annoyed but sat across from me, crossing her arms defensively. I took a deep breath and pulled out the folder I'd prepared. "I think you know why I called." "You hear," I said. "I've found all the proof I need that you've been cheating on me, with Jason, for months apparently." Her face twisted into that usual sneer, trying to brush it off. "Oh, come on, Daniel, you're overreacting. You always do. That's just some dumb text messages. Maybe I was drunk or joking around. You're being paranoid." I shook my head and laid the printed evidence on the table. Her eyes widened for a moment, then she quickly recovered her composure, trying to act dismissive. "Yeah, so what? Everyone texts like that. It doesn't mean anything." I pressed on. "It means everything. You lied to my face about him, about everything. How long has this been going on? Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" Her smirk faded for a second, then she scoffed. "Honestly, Daniel, you're such a pathetic, jealous little boy. You think this is some big deal. We're married, we've been through worse. You're just jealous because I still look good and guys like me. That's all this is." Her words hit me like a punch, but I kept my voice steady. "No, this isn't just about looks. Jealousy. You betrayed me, Lisa. You cheated, you lied, you turned everything we had into a joke. How could you do this at the moment I was being honored, during my achievement ceremony? That's what really hurts." She rolled her eyes and leaned back, giving me that typical bitchy glare. "You're so full of yourself, Daniel. You think you're the center of the universe. Honestly, I don't have time for your drama. Maybe I was just bored, maybe I needed some excitement. Whatever. I don't care what you think." Her voice was harsh, cutting, like she didn't care about my feelings at all, but I knew better. I saw her desperation, her panic behind that smirk. She was trying to cover up her shame. I realized then that there was no point in arguing with her anymore. I had already made up my mind. This was the end, or at least the beginning of the end. I told her I was done, that I wanted a divorce, that I'd had enough of her lies, her betrayal, her bullshit. I told her I was leaving that night. And as I got up to leave, she looked at me with that bitchy smirk again, trying to trash talk, trying to dismiss what I just laid out. But I didn't care anymore. I knew what I had to do: walk away from the chaos she created, reclaim my dignity, and start over. I left the house that evening with a heavy heart, knowing I'd be better off without her, but also feeling the ache of loss. This betrayal cut deep, but I also knew that I'd take control of my life from now on. I'd rebuild, learn from this, and never let someone like her treat me like that again. I learned that you can't always trust the one you love, but you can choose how to respond, and I was done being the victim. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking through a fog of mixed emotions: anger, relief, sadness, and a strange sense of liberation. I moved out of the house, took some time to breathe, and started sorting through everything. The evidence I had gathered was my insurance, proof that I wasn't just imagining her betrayal. I went to see a lawyer, finalized the paperwork for the divorce, and began the process of rebuilding my life. Lisa, of course, tried to play it cool at first, acting like nothing had happened, but I could see through her act. She was losing her grip on the life she thought she could manipulate. Her insults, her dismissive attitude, none of it affected me anymore. I felt a strange sense of power, knowing I'd taken back control, even if it hurt like hell in the process. Looking back, I realize how much this experience changed me. I learned that trust is fragile, that some people will betray you without a second thought, and that real strength comes from standing up after being knocked down. I also learned that sometimes the most brutal lessons come from the people you're supposed to trust the most, but I refuse to let this define me. I've started focusing on myself, rebuilding my confidence, and reconnecting with old friends I'd neglected. Most importantly, I learned to trust my instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Ignoring the signs only makes it worse. The betrayal from Lisa was a hard blow, but I refused to remain a victim. I'm moving forward, stronger, wiser, and more cautious about who I let into my life. To anyone reading this, if you're going through something similar, know that it hurts, but you do have the strength to get through it. Don't let anyone make you feel small or unworthy. Take control of your narrative. Find your peace. Because in the end, even the deepest betrayal can become the catalyst for a new beginning.